I'm Dr. Heather Denniston with the Junk You Should Know Show, and I am very fortunate today to have Juliana Dever here with us, and she is, well, if you want multi-passionate, that's what this woman is. She is an actress, she is a blogger, she is a traveler, she is a foodie, she is a writer, she works with all sorts of different brands, she's a tour guide, she does all of these different and cool things. And I wanted to bring her with us today on the Junk You Should Know Show because we are going to be talking about adventure, about women getting out and doing the things that they're passionate about food, and about being well when you're out in the world, and being well when you're in a profession that can kind of eat you up a little bit. Am I right?
You are super right.
Well, welcome. Let me just do a quick thank you to the sponsor. Of course, the Change Cave is our sponsor, 12-module online learning institute for women over 40 who want to ignite passion and inspire first steps to their next wellness aspiration. We'll put the link down below, but it's just $29.99 a month, cancelable at any time. It's an incredible program. Please check it out. And, we are all things wellness here at the Junk You Should Know Show. So if you are interested in that, then check out the Change Cave. So Juliana, I am grateful you're here. Thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you.
And I want to first mention that you have a website called, is it Juliana Dever Wherever? No,
it's Clever Dever Wherever.
Of course it is. And you're so funny because we were just talking about this before the show that everyone says Cleaver Dever, and it's not Dever, it's Dever. It's rhyming with wherever.
It's also not Denver.
Not Denver. Yeah. And so her website, cleverdeverwherever.com. Seriously, kids, check this out because, Juliana and I met back in March at a conference, and she really inspired me with all of her tales of travel and just not paying attention to typical boundaries for a woman out there on her own, traveling and doing wild and crazy things. And so I just wanted to get more of her, and I am quite sure all of you want the same. So I'm bringing her on the show. So you have, first of all, you've traveled almost to 60 countries or more. You have several writing awards for some of your writing, your photography. That's pretty exciting. You also are an actress. You are in LA. You have been on the show Castle, among many other shows. You have probably a resume that just goes on forever. And so tell me a little bit about how you got into this, like, really adventurous kind of travel. How did that start for you?
It's funny because when you say it, I'm like, did I do all these things? You sit there and you were like, I haven't done anything with my life.
So true.
We all do it. I mean, I do it.
Yes, so we do. No, we do all do it. We do.
Sometimes it's nice for somebody else, okay, that's the first thing, everybody. Have someone else read back to you the things you've done. You might feel better about yourself.
Yeah, my sister had a 50th birthday party, and she was of that mind, like, I've done nothing. And we pulled photos making it into a 50 and from her whole life. And she stood back and said the same thing. She's like, oh my gosh, I was there and I was there and I was there. So very cool. So share with us a little bit about the birth of adventure travel for you.
For me, yeah. So I grew up in a small town in Missouri, and really in a mindset, a family that was small. So it was like, well, don't do anything too big. That's not for you. That's for other people. Like, that included acting and traveling. Like, I'm the first person in my family to even have a passport.
Oh, my word.
I know, right? And I didn't get onto an airplane until I was 18, and then I worked for an airline. Like, that was, so it was kind of like, I feel like such a late bloomer in so many respects, because at a certain point, I couldn't accept that none of that was for me. Like who are these other people that get to do this, and why can't I? And I think maybe an aspect of it was that I was supposed to stay safe. I don't know, but I was just like, I have to get out here. And so the first international trip I ever took was to Spain. And that's when I was working for an airline. And I was blown away, because it's typified in that, like, so a couple years ago, I took my mom to Europe, and she, again, first time out of the country. And I took her to a grocery store in Amsterdam, because I just love to go to grocery stores in other countries and look at their food and how, just what the culture is. And she watched two women at the produce section, and she turned to me and she said, they don't even know about St. Charles, Missouri. I was like, she's like, they're just living their life. And I'm like, but exactly, isn't that crazy? Like, you get so insulated, or you get, you go about your daily business. I have to get this done and this done. And you forget that there's an entire planet and people have different concerns and their days going on. And once I realized how big the world was, I just got so excited. I had to keep seeing it. And I mean, it's just been an incredible journey that I love. Yeah.
It's so great. And actually the nature of your profession allows you to have breaks where you can take off and then come back and do another job. There's a balance there though. So as you got into acting, did you have to put some of your travel aside or vice versa? How did that work for you?
Well, what's really funny is as an actor, the kind of the old saying is that, I mean, at least in my house, because my husband's an actor as well. If you did watch the show Castle, you'll know him as Kevin Ryan. And you don't, like, the minute you put money down on a trip is the minute you book something, without exception. And sometimes I'm like,
that's funny.
It's crazy. I remember, like you stay home for that audition and for the phone to ring. And you're like, I'm not doing anything with my life. I'm just going to stay here. And then finally you're like, oh my goodness, it's been like 8 months. I'm going to go on a trip. And it's exactly, I remember one of the first movies I got, I was like, I don't do anything but, try to get auditions. And so I went on a trip, and we were doing a road trip across the United States from Texas and of course, the minute I did that, I got a call, well, we want you to be in our movie. And we had to like race back, and I just went, oh my gosh. So then you get into that mindset once again, you're like, well, I shouldn't leave. And then, but it's funny, even for my husband, when he first booked Castle, he gets really nervous about going out of town because he wants to be available. And I'm like, forget it. Just do it. Because like when I was shooting a movie in Greece, and then he met me in Italy. And the minute he booked that, he got a call like, we want you to come in and audition for the show. And he's like, okay, I'm going to finish my trip and then I'll be in, I'll just come in the next morning. He books it, so it's like, it's interesting. So you have to really kind of decide, like, do I have a life? Do I,
well, and it's a testament to not holding things too tightly, to kind of letting things flow through your life, because then it pulls more things into your life as you let things go. So I really love that. Now I have to ask, this is completely kind of like off the subject, but the Gobi Desert do I even say that right? You
did, yeah.
Okay. Tell me about that. Like, how did you get there? And what was the story behind that?
Yeah. So, once I started, like, once I started traveling a little bit, it's for some people, and maybe it's for everybody, but you have this tendency, like the next one has to be a little bit, you have to, like, it takes more to get that rush, right?
Yeah.
You're like,
it's a rush for sure.
Yeah. Like, well, if I climbed 5 feet today, I'm going to climb 10.
Yeah.
And so I also have this urge, this desire, like in terms of my travel, and it's kind of what I do as well. Like I have a very big concern about over tourism and crowded. And so I'm always seeking out these places that are just a little bit to the left, like everybody else is like, I'm going here. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go over there. And they're like, why would you go there? And I'm like, exactly. I'm so attracted to the lesser known, the curiosities, the things that seem like a challenge.
Yeah.
And I want to say, like, I'm by no means like, for everyone who's watching that is sometimes not a warrior, like I don't run marathons, but I think for me, because I was raised with so many fears, that just doing half the things I do is huge. I conquer so much, and so when I decided I wanted to go to Mongolia, I just decided I want to go to Mongolia, and I didn't know exactly how I was going to get there. And there are some countries that I'll just kind of show up in and have no problem. There's other countries there's not an infrastructure for tourism, or you might need a guide simply because it's very difficult to translate, or, many reasons. So I think I found a tour company, and they were doing what's known as a FAM trip, a familiarization trip, that they'll bring travel agents on, or, so that they can maybe sell this tour to their clients.
Their people.
Yeah. And so I wrote to them and I was like, hi, and I did my pitch, I'm a travel blogger with this many followers, and I'm really interested in Mongolia, and maybe I could come on your trip too. And they were like, okay. They wanted me to, in exchange, they wanted me to not only talk about it, but also to write, do a proper translation. for their websites. I was like, not a problem. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I went. It was so weird.
So
like,
great.
It was so fantastic though, because it was like, we started in Ulaanbaatar, which is the main city. And, you know, Mongolia, if you're not familiar with it, was part of the Soviet Union as well. Okay. But it is just a vast, vast, barren land. And we're talking about, I was nervous because goats, after dogs, are my favorite creatures on the planet. Like, goats are my spirit animals. I have a section on my blog devoted to goats. People who know me know that I'm always cuddling goats everywhere in the world. And the thing is, they don't have a lot to eat there in terms of, you know, it's just, there's not farmland, there's not grazing. Yeah. It's challenging for them. And so they're like, well, if you come to the village, they might slaughter a goat in honor of you. And I'm like, I will have a breakdown. That's like you're killing one of my dogs or something. And I was very lucky that did not happen. But that was a place where we flew in a tiny plane down to the Gobi Desert, and we had trackers that had Jeeps, and they took us. There's no roads whatsoever. So they just kind of know by maybe like some of the rock formations or the sun, and they just drive. We would drive all day and get to what's called a ger camp, which a lot of people are familiar in other countries. They're called yurts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so we would sleep in ger camps every night. But this is also, again, a country that has no agriculture to speak of. So they're getting in vegetables from Russia and China, and they're kind of shrink wrapped. And being someone, I eat fish, I'm a pescatarian, but I don't eat meat. But it was funny because the people that were on our tour, by the end of the trip, they weren't eating the meat either. Because they're like, I don't know.
I don't know about this.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, you know, as far as advice for traveling and food. It's kind of like there's a blend between when in Rome, you know, eat what the locals eat to whatever degree that you can, but also just protecting yourself. You have to be a little bit careful about that.
Yeah. I mean, and I've said it many times because I do write about food as well. Like, I try to get a primer for anybody who's going to a country like Greek food, which is just incredible, and Georgian food, and, you know, different cuisines that, and I've written about this on some of my Facebook posts. Like, for me, to live in a country like the United States is, you know, there's an abundance of food, and we are privileged. And I think you have to acknowledge that privilege, that I can live in Los Angeles and I can make the choice not to eat what I don't want to eat. Yeah. You know, like I can, and I'm very lucky here. I can get kale anywhere, but you know, like I can find the things that I want to eat. I can usually find them like organic, or, you know, I can buy them straight from a farmer, but I'm not, and I'm a vegetarian because I don't eat mammals because I love them. I'm just a soft heart. I'm an animal advocate, and you know, I would support some animal charities. And so it's just, for me, like I would start crying. But I'm just sensitive. But you know, again, I'm lucky. But I would never, as much as I have a feeling about loving animals, I would never go to another country and impose my belief on someone else, or make a judgment, or say, you can't eat like this, because it's not my place, you know, it's not my culture and my tradition. So I'm careful about that. But having said that, I'm still not going to eat it. I'm still not going to eat a goat. But so take care of yourself. And I think that's a thing. Like, when I was going to Mongolia, I knew that there might not be many vegetables, or I might, you know, there might be challenges. So, you know, I went to REI, which is like the local outdoor shop on the West Coast. And I got some like freeze dried food just in case. I brought peanut butter packets and some Kind bars. And, you know, like, it's my responsibility. I don't put it on other people. Like, if they're providing food and I'm paying and it's a tour, then, you know, they need to accommodate as much as they can. But we might be in a country that they can't. And so it's my responsibility to make sure that I'm fed. You know,
I think that's such a good plan. We talk a lot about this on the show and in the Change Cave about, it is up to you to be prepared, whether it's going out to a restaurant with some coworkers or it's going to Mongolia. You got to do the you got to do the due diligence to know what you need to feed yourself, so you can be energetic during whatever adventure you're doing, and you can stay safe from a nutritional standpoint if you have sensitivities or allergies, and ethics. And so you need to investigate that. So tell me a little bit, because you have done some food writing, and I know you're largely vegetarian, do eat some fish, but a little bit, like, how do you, when you're going to a country, how do you figure out where you're going to eat, what you're going to, how do you do that?
You know, It depends a little bit on like, so I've been to most of continents now, and I kind of have a feel for like what I can anticipate if I'm going to Asia versus Europe versus, like maybe going to I've been up to the tundra, like am I only going to have like pickled whale blubber? At this point, I have a good sense of what continent I'm heading to and what I can sort of expect. So, if I'm heading to somewhere in Western Europe, I usually don't think too much about it. Surprisingly, like France and Spain are some of the hardest countries, because they eat so much meat. But
they do.
I know
for sure.
I know that I'm going to be okay. Like, and I've traveled enough, and again, we're very fortunate in Los Angeles that we have cuisines all over, of all like so many global cuisines. So I have a sense of it. And if I'm going somewhere like Mongolia or somewhere where I know, well, this might be. I was up in the Andes last fall in the northern Argentina and Chile, and it's like, okay, that's Argentina is a meat fest. Like I'm a little concerned for them, frankly, because I'm like, you can't have 17 plates of meat for dinner. Like you guys want anything green, but then you're like, okay, I'm gonna have to pack some food.
Yeah. And one of the things that you mentioned, not specifically, but that made me think of it, is that when you expose yourself to these kind of cultures, and like you said, we get so used to be able to have Chinese, Japanese, Mexican, Thai all within a block, plus all of your food sensitivities, all of your best grocery, all of your organics. It's a great experience to go, oh yeah, like this is such a privilege. This is we should not be taking this for granted. We should be full of gratitude every time we fill a grocery cart at Whole Foods. And so it is a good reminder. There's all sorts of different reasons to travel. For me, that's one of them too, is just remembering, and not taking things for granted. I think it's good. Now, tell me a little bit, because you won it's a gold and a silver medal from NATJ, N-A-T-J. I think it's North American Travel Journalists Association. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
And so what articles was it, or what submissions was it that you won for that?
So yes, my silver was one of the things that outside of eating, which is such a big thing for me. One of the reasons that I travel so much is because I just have I have an affinity for human connection. Like I love going to other countries and meeting people. I've made friends all over the world. Now I stay at their houses half the time. So for me, I think that connection, like I feel like we're getting further and further and further from being able to connect to one another or understand someone else's point of view or just have empathy. And so I try to find people wherever I go. And if I can, I interview them. And I was really lucky. I was in Hungary, and a good friend of mine who is also an incredible writer, she had told me, she kind of gave me a tip. She's like, if you get to this little town in the Tokai region, which is a wine country in Hungary, there's a synagogue, and you need to go to the synagogue and talk to this little old man. And so I had a translator with me, and it was just this one won the silver. It was an incredible story because back in World War II, when he was about 7 years old, and he was a Catholic, and in this little tiny town of, I might mispronounce it, Maud, all of his friends, the rest of the village, were Jewish. And he remembers the morning when the guards came in and rounded his friends up and took them away. And most of the Jews after the Holocaust and after World War II, they never returned to the town because they either moved on or they were in the concentration camps. So he lived next door to the synagogue, and it was this gorgeous Baroque synagogue that was built like right at the end of the 18th century, early 19th century. And he would go in and he would clean it for 50 years in their honor for all of his friends that had passed away. And he would keep that. He just kept it clean. He has a key to it. He'd make sure the birds were out. He'd hang up like trash bags over the windows to keep pigeons out. And finally they had a grant to not rehabilitate,
like renovate.
Thank you. And it is just jaw dropping. It is, you would never know from the outside. It's just this nondescript kind of square building. You go inside it. You can see photos of that on my website, but it's just jaw droppingly beautiful. And it was just like such an honor, or like the fact that he would honor his friends and just keep that alive and say,
what a cool story.
It was about there may be tragedies, but there's still goodness in humanity and people. So, and then the other one was all about one of my dearest favorites countries, the country of Georgia in the Caucasus. And, they have according to them, an 8,000 year unbroken wine making tradition. Oh, wow. And so one of the things they do that's really special, and some cultures do it as well, but they make them in clay pots. And, I visited, they're called quevries. And I visited one of the quevry makers. There's only a couple, and they make them by hand. And we're talking, again, if you look at the story on my site, like they're taller than me. They're like 20 feet tall. They're massive amphora, and they bury them like up to the collar. And every year they make them, and they claim that it has so many health benefits from being in the clay, being in the earth, that it's naturally filtered, or, not like a filtered wine, but like the impurities are taken out, and the clay and the earth imparts things to the wine that actually, they're like, you should drink wine every day. And it just like made me giggle. So I think that's the headline. Cool. They say, drinking wine is healthy every day.
Every day.
I was like, sure.
How great, and what incredible experience. I mean, just those two stories, you must have thousands and thousands of those stories. So that is super exciting. Before we kind of move away from travel, one of my questions, well, first of all, I want to say to you guys, kindly, Juliana has agreed to give us a little giveaway today, which is is it a PDF or is it a little workbook? Or
it's a PDF.
It's a PDF. It's a 2-week packing list for a carry-on. So if you're going away for 2 weeks and you want to just take a carry-on, she has solved your problems for you.
Yes.
So we're going to put that in the discussion below in the comments. So make sure you do click on that and get connected with Juliana so she can send that to you. But also, you mentioned Georgia, and you, I think for the first time, have created a getaway, a group tour in May of next year that sold out in 3 hours, which is incredible. Now, is it couples? Is it women? Is it men? Is it who?
You know what? When I started it, like I had no designs on, who should or shouldn't come. But fascinatingly enough, my first one, it's all women, which is awesome, right?
Which I kind of predicted that it might be, because it's such when I talk to women about travel, if they're not into it and adventurous, it's not neutral, it's fear. And so meaning like, it's not, I just don't care. It's that I'm afraid to go by myself. And so I love that you've created this situation that women can get together and go and have this incredible adventure with you as their guide. And you said there's a couple other people on the ground who are going to be helping you. And then you also mentioned that since this one sold out, you're thinking of doing another one. Is that right?
I am. I love the country of Georgia so much. And if you're not familiar with where Georgia is, it is in the Caucasus. If you know where Armenia is, it borders Armenia, but it also borders Turkey, and it's just south of Russia. And the mountains there are just, oh my goodness.
So beautiful.
So I think and I have a video. I think I have it on my website for sure, and I have it on my Facebook page. But if you go watch the one, I have a 2-minute version and a 1-minute version. If you watch it, you'll see what I mean. You'll see why it's so amazing. But yeah, I curated this specifically because it's such a rich country, and it's so cultural, and so the food is so incredible. And then there's we're going to be in a canyon where we do some hiking, and we've got a little bit of when I say rafting, I mean, it's not white water, it's like glass, and it's like pale blue, that kind of has.
Oh, yes.
And then we are going way up into the mountains, and we are going to, you have the option to hike to this glacier, or just chill out and eat mushroom dumplings all day. But,
I love that. When is the next one going to be?
I'm looking at doing it at the end of September 2019, beginning of October, like right in when harvest season is starting, because the wine over there is incredible, and it's actually different. I didn't think would be possible to say, but it's different than what you're used to drinking. And so fortunately, we also have like wine experts with us. We're going to be having lunch at winemakers' homes. We're going to be having the opportunity to have like some small intimate groups, having time with locals to talk. We're going to be doing cooking classes and walking tours. And
so great.
It's so fun. And I have all the information. If you're on the Georgia mailing list specifically, you'll get more information. But yeah, I'll be sending it out again. And
perfect.
It's a good group on that email. So like I said, when I put it out the first time, it was sold out in 3 hours because I keep it small. It's only 12 spaces.
Yeah, that's so
and we
great.
have two Georgian tour managers that are born and raised professional tour managers on the ground there. I'm kind of the host. I'm like Ricardo Montalban.
I love it. Welcome. No, that's great. And so if you are looking for an adventure and if you don't know where Georgia is or anything about it, even more reason to go. But the way to get started is in the comments below, we're going to put a link to the specific Georgia email link. That's separate than the packing list. So make sure to do both if you are interested in that, because then you'll just get information. It's not committing you to anything. You're just going to get information on it. You'll be in the know, so to speak.
Exactly.
So, and I think I get the impression based on how you light up on how this thing sold out so quickly, these are going to be an ongoing thing for you. At least I anticipate, and maybe you'll branch out to other countries as well.
That's kind of the plan. I have another country in my back pocket that I'm really excited about working on. So.
That's a secret. We'll keep it a secret. We'll keep that anticipation high. I think that's great, but let's shift. Mm-hmm. You're in LA. You are an actress. You are actually a working actress. You're not a wannabe actress. And that means you are subject to a lot of the pressures, a lot of the different things going on. And as women, that's hard enough for most of us who aren't in front of the camera. So my question to you is, how do you stay well emotionally, physically, fitness-wise, all of those, with the schedule, the pressure, with the camera in your face? What are some of your personal tricks that you do to stay sane?
Well, yeah, you're right. 'Cause the hours sometimes are crazy. It's like 16 hours, but you don't go to work until 4 p.m. And so it can be crazy. And it's funny too, because, a lot of people have this impression that Los Angeles is like just like a crazy party town. And I don't know if that's from, the Kardashians or what. But it's funny because I find LA to be extremely health conscious and very grounded, which I think people would be like, hey, what? But the truth is, I think, first of all, relationships, like who do you surround yourself with? Who do you attract? Who do you keep in your orbit? And, most of the people who come to Los Angeles are artists. And most people aren't from here. There are some, but they're from all over. So, like my best friend's from Georgia, my husband's from Michigan and Arizona, like my other friend's from Minnesota. Like people are from I don't know. It's not this monolith of, so there's that. So you've got like influences, but also, I mean, because people are on TV, they're very image conscious. And I think as long as you're healthy about that, it's a good thing to be surrounded with people who are like, you want to go on a hike today? Like the amount of times I get invited to go on a hike, and we're lucky because we have all these mountains right here, where the Hollywood sign is. Those are all hiking trails. But for me also, I have like a morning routine, and that's we were talking about non-negotiables, and for me those things are really important. Like the absolute first thing I do, kind of no exception, when I wake up is 10 minutes of like gentle morning stretching yoga. Like, and I just find it on YouTube. I don't pay money for anything. And there's some amazing ones on YouTube. And every morning, even though I'll work out later, I just, before I even have coffee or anything, there's that. Then I read, and this is like, the morning routine is not like I didn't invent it, but I've been really adhering to it, and it makes me feel, it just gives me a different outlook on the day. Staying mentally healthy is a big deal out here because there's so much rejection, and there's so much, we're talking about how the career path of an actor is so confusing that it hurts your brain because, you get incredible resumes and you have all this work, and then people are like, yeah. And you're like, what? We were talking about how it's opposite to someone in a corporate role. The more experienced, the more wise they are, the more challenges they've overcome, the more they're sought after, and we want to hire them. You and I were talking about how in your industry, it's almost the opposite, because the older you get, it's even though you've had all of these credits and you've had all this experience, those aren't the criteria they under which they choose, and so it is a mind screw because and you have to. it can get depressing. Like you have to make sure that you're keeping, like you have to know who you are, and that's easy to say, but the way that I kind of hold on to that on a daily basis is like, then I'll do like 15 minutes of reading while I've got my coffee, and whether that's like, sometimes I'll read like something like the Daily Stoic, or I'll read like You Are a Badass, like one chapter, like something that reminds you that how the world is perceiving you. If you know that you're waking up and you're like winning the day, like it doesn't matter. So you have to kind of make your own way. So then I always meditate. I have a gratitude journal, which I know sounds so LA, but really I think it starts with reminding yourself every day, like, what am I grateful for? Because gratitude is huge, and
it puts you in the right mindset.
Exactly. So it's kind of like all of those little things, and they really only amount to like an hour, but
let me just recap that for anybody who's tuning in. First of all, I'm with Juliana Dever, who is from Clever Dever Wherever, who is a travel and photography blogger, and she's also an actress. She's been on Castle, and we're talking about how to stay well when you're in an industry that's full of pressure, full of image consciousness. And I love some of the things you said. So you talked about morning stretches as the first thing to kind of get your brain flowing. You're not immediately checking your phone. You're not immediately doing things that are going to create negativity. And then with your coffee, you might read something uplifting, spiritual, whatever it is. And you have to decide that for yourself. For some people, it's the Bible. For some people, it's a great book. For some people, it's whatever that is for you, and stay consistent with it. You also mentioned that you do workout or move your body almost every day. You are a pescatarian, so you're conscious about the food that you eat, and have found what works for your body, which is really, really great. And I think the biggest one you said that I love so much is relationships and community, and that you know who your community is, you know who you can rely and count on, and that you have people that you can connect with deeply on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really great. Is there anything we left out of there? Because
I'm like, what did I look? And I'm not gonna lie, I still drink like 64 to 75 ounces of water a day. It's like you have to have the water, you have to have the sleep. Like I got a Fitbit just to track my sleep, and then it's amazing because that awareness is like, oh, did I drink enough water? I haven't moved enough. Like I love it because it's an awareness thing. But those are the things at home. Yeah.
That's great. The show last week was, I didn't have somebody to interview. I just did a show on the ways apps and your phone can make you well, and all the different, even though it seems like a little crazy, all the different apps, all the different tracking things, tracking data works. And so whether it's a food counter or a hydration app, or it's your sleep app from your Fitbit or whatever it is, use it. We didn't have this 5-10 years ago, and it's fantastic.
And realizing how, like, when I started really tracking my sleep, it was sort of a wake up call.
Yes, no pun intended.
Exactly. So,
which is
great. It was like, oh, I need to really make sure I'm starting an evening routine. I'm putting myself to bed and no screen time app, because it's like, what is it? Ignorance is bliss. Yeah, maybe, but it's also doing a lot of things that are you're getting into unhealthy habits. So awareness is actually probably bliss. I don't know.
Yeah. And if you actually have some specific health and wellness goals and you're not tracking some of that data, if you're not going to make it. It's just going to be zigzagging on and off course because you don't know what the path is. So I think that's really powerful stuff. Well, my goodness, Juliana, we talked about some great stuff. I want to recap that your blog, in fact, I've got a little thing here. Let me put it up so people can write it down if they need to. So it's cleverdeverwherever.com. We are also going to put a link to that if you want to just click through, put a link to that in the comments. We're going to put a link to the 2-week packing list for a carry-on for your next trip. And so she's going to give that to you guys for free. And then we also are going to put a link to the Georgia mailing list so that you can get on and find out about her next adventure trip. And it'll just keep you connected to Juliana. And you can also find her on Facebook and Instagram. So you can check, if those are your sources, please check those as well. I am so grateful, and I know you have some irons in the fire of some cool stuff coming down the pike for you, and potentially to be able to continue to live your dream of pushing out cool stories of travel and adventure to your followers. I hope all of that works out for you. I hope you get everything that you're hoping for. And it's been a pleasure to meet you in March and to connect with you again. I'm so grateful that we had some time together.
I know. I feel like we could just keep talking. I'm like, there's so much fun stuff coming up. I just want to share with everybody. Yes. But then again, if you come on over to my Facebook page, you'll kind of see, you know, I've got some big Alaska adventures that I'm writing about right now and some other cool stuff. So yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. So I actually perhaps we can even put a couple links in the comments to the 2 award-winning. I don't know if people can people click through to those? Or is there a link?
Absolutely. There's like a search up at the top, but I want to make it easy. And I also have a fun, and you can just like go to the post, but about what do I keep in my first aid kit in my little wellness bag.
Oh, I love that.
Because I've had strep throat on the road before, and I didn't even have antibiotics, and I was fine. I mean, not fine, but I was only down for like 2 or 3 days because of what I had in my wellness bag.
Love it.
So you can find all of that.
Okay, that's a great one. And maybe that's just a little teaser for a future show that I can bring you back on and we can talk about that specifically, because that is really, really great. People are asking about that all the time, is like, how do you stay well when you travel?
Travel is so hard on your body.
And not having to take a bunch of sleeping pills and antibiotics and all that crap. We want to do it from a wellness-minded perspective. So I appreciate that you mentioned that.
Yeah, for sure.
But Juliana, stay with me as we close out. We'll just say goodbye to everybody. And thank you for watching again. Junk You Should Know show is here every Friday at noon PST. We look forward to seeing you. Share this show with anyone you know who loves to travel. So please share this with any folks who might be interested in getting out there, or who you know should get out there, or even if it's you. Make sure that you click on some of the links below. So we will talk soon. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thanks. Bye.